3, 2, 1, we are back and welcome again to the Pon Pon Pod. How you doing?
Aces.
Very good. Now, listen, popular demand, we are going to focus on one of the world's greatest entertainers. You love him, you hate him. He also happens to be the President of the United States, possibly the most powerful man in the world. Our guy, Donald J.
And a star of the critically acclaimed Home Alone 2.
Yes,
playing himself, if you remember.
Yes.
Lost in New York.
Now listen, it's one thing to have a celebrity entertainer, TV personality, movie star as the president of the free world, posting things about Gaza, AI. Don't even get me started. We won't even go down that road.
Gaza Trump
Yes,
Tower.
yes. What do you think I'm referring to?
I didn't.
All right.
I just wanted to
Thank you.
clarify
Very good.
that.
Now listen. But, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you may be old enough, you may be young enough, who knows? But we've been here before.
We have been here before. We have been before. In the junior varsity context of the word, I think.
I don't know what that means, but go ahead.
I think Trump is basically the supercharged, hyperinflated version of the man that you're referring to.
Yes.
The president who ran America throughout the 80s.
And who happened to be a celebrity and a movie star himself.
It's very, very
and
true.
And a TV star.
Very
much like our big boy Donnie.
And a Democrat-Republican flip-flopper. Initially a Democrat,
all right.
became a Republican.
Can we, you're jumping ahead of yourself. So we're here to compare and contrast and see what lessons we've learned and how that guy ended up and how this guy might end up. Right
True.
On?
Yeah,
so
I like it.
Give us a bit of backstory on
We
your
haven't
boy.
actually introduced his predecessor.
Oh, have we not?
No, we haven't.
Oh, bloody hell.
The 40th president of the United States.
You're too much faff with you. Just get on with it.
I'm sorry.
Jesus, I'm teeing you up and you give me faff. Ronald Reagan, ladies and gentlemen. That's who we're talking about. Ronald Reagan, comparing him to Donnie J. Yeah. And what we can learn and what we can't learn. And this guy knows it all. Go ahead. Stick it to him. Stick it to him.
Well, first of all, as you rightly say, right, didn't exclusively grow up in a politically minded environment.
Right.
Okay? So in that sense, they bear lots of similarities. Okay? Reagan was obviously an actor in Hollywood during the 40s and 50s.
Right.
Not a particularly celebrated actor, but I still think a matinee idol of some distinction.
Yes.
By the way, and I must say,
that movie with the chimp.
Yes, Breakfast of Bonzos.
Great movie.
Yeah. And yes, you're right, with the monkey. You're right, yes, very well. Or chimpanzee was it?
I said chimp and monkey, same.
Anyway, the point being that Reagan also a matinee idol in the greatest sense of the word, okay?
Right.
I would have to say, in trying to collate all politicians, past, present, and even future, there is nobody with a better head of hair than Ronald Reagan throughout his life. And by the way, even when he was on his deathbed, right? He passed away in 2004, right? There was nobody with a greater, more, I want to say, pomade.
Okay, fine.
Pomade.
So, okay, we get it. So we're talking like
strength.
So that's another similarity. Crazy hair.
Although one of them has truly an incredible mane.
I mean, in your opinion, fine, but it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's a bit,
crazy
to the left.
Is crazy
it's
bad.
a bit off-piece, the hair, in both cases.
Fine.
Can you just continue with the backstory?
Okay, all right, for the backstory, okay.
I mean, you get distracted by the hair. Like, okay, fine. But
you're not distracted by hair. Anyway, so then Ronald Reagan transitions basically really after World War II,
right,
into politics.
How so?
And actually shifts allegiances from democratic-leaning sensibilities to more right-wing ones. And I think this has something to do with the intensity of the then Cold War, the rise of the Red Scare, communism, engulfing.
Right.
Russia, and obviously
and he was a bit of a rat. He sold out a lot of actors in Hollywood.
He did, exactly. He was part of that famous kind of McCarthyism plague, if you like.
Yes.
And
now we have a similar thing.
Yeah. Well,
if you're not MAGA, you're out.
It's true. Yeah.
Right? Okay.
If you're not a MAGA loyalist, it's true. You're either with me or you're against me.
Exactly.
Right? So there was that kind of strong partisanship that both of them kind of adhered to. Although, I think Reagan, as his star began to rise politically, really distanced himself from the associations with McCarthyism.
Fine.
which was a dark period in
Okay,
US history.
yeah.
Okay, and became governor of California in, I think, 1960 or so.
As Trump has kind of disassociated himself with ultra right wing fanatics, or has he?
It's true.
Or has he, Elon?
Proud Boys.
Anyway, go on. Yes, exactly. Those sort of things.
Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Okay, and Reagan was an incredible orator. I
Yes.
have to say.
Yes.
All right. Now, I don't know about Trump's.
Dude, there's
Oration
nobody more entertaining on the mic
yeah, I
than
agree.
Trump. Now, okay, he might not have that same sort of like
Gravitas.
rousing
Yeah.
gravitas, sort of,
Vocabulary.
sure.
Yeah.
I was gonna say kind of pomposity, if that's even a
Yeah,
word.
right, right.
But Trump has something else, and it's just as magnetic.
It's the entertainment value.
Exactly.
And you know what?
In either case, however you want to package it, both are entertaining.
I completely agree. And
Okay.
I really think that when you kind of chronicle and you view Reagan's rise as governor back in the 60s and 70s, right? Even through his failed presidential run in 76 when he ran against
76.
Ford, right? Okay, lost out to Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford.
Right? Even then, I mean, he was just a magnetic personality
Right.
on stage.
Yes.
Right? But had consistently been kind of, I want to say, somewhat denigrated because they associated him too strongly
Yes.
with his Hollywood past.
Right. And the pomade.
And the pomade, exactly right. That's right. That's right. Like how can a
I've gone
man?
for a bit of a Reagan-esque.
Very much so.
Stop
by the way.
distracting me with the
Yeah,
hair.
very much. And me a bit with the Trump. Can you see the comb over right there?
Exactly, exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
you're exactly right. The pomade. You know what I mean? And actually, when you really think about it,
Yeah.
Reagan, who was another similarity here.
Yeah.
Okay, when Reagan finally got elected in 1980, okay, who did he succeed? Okay, he succeeded agreeing, although younger.
Yes.
What's it called? Incumbent president.
Yes.
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, who was seen as a weak president,
Okay,
right?
so-
although probably maybe I would argue the best president the US has ever had.
Okay.
But was weak probably because he was not ruthless enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like the similarities are glaring.
Yes.
Against, well, certainly when you compare him to Trump Mark II.
Yes.
Because I think in the first election cycle he was up against, he's succeeding Obama.
Yeah,
But
tough.
but even then, when you consider that he was basically running against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Okay, and also like a kind of waning, boring kind of GOP at that time.
Yes.
Jeb Bush and these kind of grandfathered in kind of
establishment
figures.
Yes.
And you have this guy who's all of a sudden like
Fresh.
rich in color,
Exactly.
fresh, and
Yes.
and the rhetoric.
saying something very different to everybody else.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And if you actually kind of compare and contrast that with Reagan when he emerged front and center against Carter in 79-80, right? On the back of important comparisons here, on the back of then an ailing economy that had been kind of crippled by an oil crisis, high inflation, and of course, a failed foreign policy, specifically
with regards to Iran.
and of course Afghanistan as well.
Don't forget that.
Because of the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan.
Yes.
Right? Very, very similar. And then you have Trump who's running against Biden, also kind of a boring, kind of lethargic, kind of gray-haired.
Again, failed policy in Afghanistan.
yes. and of
now
course,
it
and
was
Middle East. And the Middle East. Okay, so incredible similarities there, okay? Both presidents come in with all this kind of like fanfare and bluster.
Yes.
Right? And
like, we're going to change things. America's going to get back on top.
Make America great again.
And what was Trump, what did Reagan used to say?
I don't remember.
But something along those lines.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
He actually did espouse that rhetoric.
Nationalism, that patriotism.
100%.
Yes.
And Reagan's...
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah. You ain't seen nothing yet. Exactly right.
Same.
And Reagan also, by the way, in a distinction that he shares with Trump, although with Biden as well.
Yes.
Actually, sorry, I would say with Trump, Biden, and Trump again, the oldest presidents ever elected, right? So Trump the first time, Biden, and Reagan, I think at the time of his election, was a staggering, I think, 69.
Yeah.
Trump now is like 70. 69 was considered far too old to run. And Trump now has actually kind of I mean, he's defied all laws.
Yeah.
With having won twice now.
Absolutely.
As a 75-year-old and then a 79-year-old.
Anyway, so we were going on about some similar,
Yes.
just something that I should touch on, and I think I may be jumping the gun here, but also, okay, so they come to the fore.
Yeah.
America's back on top.
Yeah.
There's this feel-good factor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The golden age has returned for America.
The golden age has
We're
returned.
back to our fundamentals, back to what the founding fathers
Yeah.
wanted. All this kind of stuff. We're not taking any more like crap lying down.
No.
All this, and like, you know, Reagan helped by Hollywood at that time. Suddenly there was a rise and
Yeah.
reflected in what we saw on screen and on the silver screen. Rocky IV, to mention like 1,000 others.
Rocky IV, very much a metaphor for Reagan's presidency and his politics at that time.
Exactly.
With the glasnost.
Exactly,
perestroika.
glasnost, making
Yeah.
peace, end
Exactly.
of war.
Exactly.
We see the same thing. We've seen it with the Trump in North Korea.
Absolutely.
Like, who would have ever thought that? And possibly now with other countries as well. Iran, possibly.
Well, and Russia.
Possibly. I doubt it, but possible.
Let's not forget the
Russia
the key
again.
player here.
Yes, it's always Russia.
Because the kind of the U.S.-Russia connection
Yes.
was what defined
I
Reagan's
mean-
presidency, and now once again
Guys.
we have this kind of like new Cold War
Yes.
brewing,
Yes.
with Trump trying to diffuse it the same way Reagan actually successfully diffused the Cold War in its entirety
Yes.
by the time he left office.
Can I get deep?
Go on, get deep.
If you want to predict the future, look to the past. We're going through the same thing again. History is repeating itself.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Okay, so it's so interesting. On the day that Reagan was inaugurated, what happened? The Iranian hostages were released. Right?
Yes.
And
The moment the plane took off the tarmac in Tehran.
Exactly.
It was the same moment Reagan
was sworn in.
was sworn in.
Okay.
Put his hand on the Bible, said, "Yes, I do."
That's right. Exactly.
And you
right.
ain't seen nothing in it.
Exactly right. Yeah. Like, and if you look at Trump's first, I don't want to say 100 days, his first 30 days,
That
right?
was Khomeini's little chess playing. Anyway, we'll get into that.
If you look at Trump's first 30 days,
Yeah.
all the things he's done, right? He has kind of what's it called? He's sort of really renounced
Right.
like things like decorum and
Sure,
policy
sure,
and
sure,
process.
sure.
He's gone straight to the bottom line.
Right.
He's essentially saying, "Look, I'm going to essentially whether you like it or not,
This is what's going to happen.
that's exactly right. Now
With good jokes along
with
the
great
way.
jokes.
With great jokes.
With great
along the
jokes.
way.
Absolutely great
Right.
jokes. Okay, I agree with you. Now, so but the Russia thing is really worth kind of bear scrutiny.
Yes.
Because it's incredible. It's an incredible.
Love bearing a bit of scrutiny.
Yeah, okay. It's an incredible kind of mirror imaging that we're seeing, right? When you come in, you have Cold War tensions with
Yes.
the Russians
Yes.
having reached fever pitch. I think with
Sure.
when Reagan came in, the Soviet Union has invaded Afghanistan. There's been an Olympic Games boycott. Okay. You know the disarmament treaties, SALT I and SALT II, that had been prevalent. Okay, and listen, write these down. Write this down.
Listen, just
Write this down.
continue.
And
I know you're getting
and
like-
things. You know, I'm getting into it.
Yeah,
right?
he's getting
And-
a bit too into it.
and-
But
and-
go on.
And the progress that détente made under Nixon, okay,
Yeah.
had all started to wane and all started to collapse, right? And Reagan, instead of trying to kind of refoster that, said, no, I'm going in the other direction, right? I'm going to increase military spending, right? Less government control, Reaganomics, supply side economics, right? I am intensifying, okay, strangely, I'm going to intensify Cold War tensions, right? Increased activity in Central America.
Maximum
right?
pressure.
Maximum pressure.
what-
Zero tolerance, right?
Thank you. Mirroring each
Star
other.
Wars.
Star
right?
Wars,
Right?
yes.
His SDI program.
Space Force.
Exactly. Right. And Spaceballs too. Right. Or with Star Balls. Anyways, all those things in one, right?
Yeah, it's just a lot of balls.
And with the great tagline.
Yes.
Okay. Which echoes now in history, which will echo forever. Right? What did he say? Chairman Gorbachev, tear down this wall,
Okay,
and
fine.
called Russia the evil empire,
Yes.
right? And in so doing, actually, kind of.
I mean, similar with Trump.
Trump is exactly the same.
Yeah, grab him by the pussy. It's
Exactly,
basically the same
exactly
thing.
the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, right? Exactly. Just slightly more filters, like, been taken off. But really, we're talking about the same thing, right?
All right.
Very gung-ho, jingoistic, nationalistic, aggressive, okay? Chuck Norris style ass-kicking rhetoric.
Right.
Although, both, boom, boom.
Although Chuck Norris, a bit more of a humanist. But anyway, we digress. Now, here's what I want to ask you.
Oh, yeah, you may.
As a learned man. What was Reagan's legacy? And what can we learn, insofar as which way Trump will go?
I like where your head's at. I like where your head's at, Mr. Caspian. Okay. I think Reagan's legacy was really that by the time he left office, the Soviet Union collapsed and a 45-year war, okay, had essentially come to an end.
Sure.
Okay. In so doing, it... Now, by the way, I mean...
But that's not necessarily good about... We can't, conclude that.
I actually don't think it's particularly good.
Yes.
Because I think the balance of power after that period of time was eroded.
Sure.
And having only one superpower presiding over the whole globe is
we
not
can
a
argue,
healthy construct.
we can argue that Russia and China have now become that counterbalance.
But they haven't... But
not
they,
in one... Yes.
They are not...
They're not in lockstep.
And you know what? They're not as proactively involved in foreign policy affairs as the Soviet Union was during the Cold War.
I might argue China
China is not involved. They're not fighting proxy wars.
They're not fighting
propping
wars,
up
but they're doing different
governments
things.
Or whatever.
No, but they're doing different things.
Such
China
as?
has learned the lessons of America. I mean, now we're getting a bit off topic, but just so you know.
No,
China
has
learned the lessons of America. Wars are not the way to impose your policies onto others. What you do, and China's One Belt, One Road policy.
Yeah.
Forgive me if I forget the exact term. Belt and Road Initiative. Sorry, I think that's what it is that instead of going in and overthrowing leaders and installing like people that are like, pro-US, what we'll do is we'll work on credit. We'll go in, we're going to build your ports, we're going to build your airports, we're going to build your roads, okay?
Yeah.
Here's the bill. Oh, you can't pay? We'll take control.
Yes.
So that's their way, that's their sort of, kind of Sino-imperialism, if you will.
Interesting. I like it. If you want a kind of like a comparison, okay, the U.S. policy right after World War II was similar with something called Marshall Aid or the Marshall Plan.
Yes, fine.
When they actually wanted to rebuild Western Europe and keep it away from Stalinist influence.
Yes, fine.
And in so doing, help them kind of reconstruct and rebuild their economies in order to forge an alliance with them.
Yes, fine.
Right? And of course then adopted that kind of policy of containment.
Yes.
Where they would...
But there's a difference. But there's a difference with China. China doesn't get involved in your politics. The US does get involved. Human rights. Oh, you need to be democratic. Yeah. Oh, you need to do that. Yeah. China says you can do whatever you want. We'll run the show.
So they're running it in a more subtle way.
Your politics are your own.
Yeah.
It's
true.
Well, we'll control the economy.
I will say that as a learned man yourself, I will ask you the question, learned man yourself, where America has tried to impose regime change.
Yes.
Okay, as they like to call it.
Yes.
And gloss it up under the rubric of human rights.
It's a lot of virtue signaling,
promoting human rights, promoting democracy, and promoting capitalist ideals, right? Under that rubric.
Yeah.
Okay. Has it been a spectacular failure,
a
success,
failure.
or is it a mixed bag?
Failure. Yeah. I mean, God, this is not really I know you've come to this channel for movies and laughs, and now we're getting a bit serious. But nevertheless, no, it's been a massive failure. Everything, all the ails of the Middle East is down to U.S. foreign policies and the mistakes they made post World War II.
Right.
And you can throw in the Brits into that as well. But regardless, it's the Americans who really have the power and the money.
Okay, so now
the pomade.
Yeah. Okay, now Trump has been running on a no war message. Okay,
sure.
Now we have seen this before.
Yes.
And we have been let down by presidents who once they secure the presidency themselves, backtrack or maybe not backtrack. Because they're conniving SOBs.
But they've been cornered.
But the system is structured in such a way...
They're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, exactly, okay? And they realize they're only pawns themselves, right?
Yes. Go on.
So, my question is, Trump has been running on this very, very kind of strict, staunch anti-war policy. Okay, and has promised to end the two wars that have been kind of brewing in the foreground, which is the war in Ukraine and, of course, the war in Gaza, right? Now, do you believe that this is going to happen? And also, I'd like to add, to the benefit of whom ultimately? A longer lasting peace?
Well, the thing is, here's one of the differences I see between Reagan and Trump, ultimately. Okay. Trump only serves himself. I think Reagan genuinely thought he was doing better for America and the greater good. But I see Trump as he's
self-serving.
Self-interest, only enriching himself is the only thing that matters. Okay?
Yeah.
To that end, not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe you can do a lot of good like that. It just depends what your worldview is, right?
Yes.
Ukraine will end.
Yes.
But who will the winners be?
Correct.
Ultimately, Trump himself.
Correct.
And Putin in this case.
Correct.
Right? Ukraine will lose out big.
Correct.
And maybe rightly so.
Okay.
Gaza, listen, the Palestinians have been on the losing end for a long time, and I don't think that's going to change. Ever. So, unfortunately for them, now I think with Trump in power, as much as people voted for him, thinking this war is going to come to an end, I think it's the end. Yes, but seriously the end for the Palestinians. And that's how the war is going to end. By ending them. It's a bit morbid.
You're getting emotional
yes,
as well.
Yes, but it's very sad. It's very sad.
It's very sad. Okay.
Anyway, so that's that. But then we're getting off track here.
Yes.
What are the things we're going to learn from Reagan?
So Reagan's great accomplishment.
And how will Trump end? Because I'm telling you, how Reagan end will be the same way Trump ends.
I think Reagan. By the way, I would completely second
wrap
what
it
you're
up
saying.
For me. Wrap it
I
up
will
for me.
completely second what you're saying about Reagan having been a more altruistic person who was not as self-serving, because he actually had dedicated himself to political life for a long time before he became president. And I agree with you that it really was his passion. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think his legacy is dominated by the end of the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, I think when people look back on the 80s, Reagan is a poster child for that era. Okay. And that was a time, as this little box of, questions will tell you, was an era dominated by just a wonderful bedside manner, right? Sunshine, the world is your oyster, opportunity, capitalism.
I know, but we
great
can always
movies,
look back
great music.
with like rose-tinted glasses. Let's not forget, he had massive troubles as well. Iran-Contra being like one of the biggest.
Iran-Contra, no question about it. No question about it. And Central America, he virtually destroyed all of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And the Contras in Nicaragua and the death squads in El
Poor
Salvador.
old Noriega.
Exactly. Yeah, poor guy. Shame
about the epoxy skin.
Yeah, it's true. We should think about who should play him in a new biopic.
Yes.
Robert Davi.
Good thing.
Robert Davi. Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
I mean, it's no question.
Big, avowed Republican.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Right? Big time. Big Trump
amazing.
supporter.
Trump plays Reagan. Davi
plays Noriega. Excellent. I love it. I like it. Okay.
Another great movie idea.
Very good. Okay. So. And also what certainly I think Reagan would be very proud of is that some 40 years on, right, almost 50 years on, people now, the Republican Party, which has gone so far to the right, in many respects, when they try and kind of defend themselves from, partisan left propaganda, they always try and who do they always reference as being
Reagan,
the reader? Exactly. Yeah. And that's a great legacy for Reagan. So even despite the kind of the dissent that has occurred between the two parties, and you know what? I'll tell you something about Reagan. He was a guy that crossed the aisle. There was something called the Reagan Democrats who actually liked Reagan. And there was a guy called Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House, who liked negotiating with him. And I think Reagan given mad props for, at the time, first of all, also winning 2 elections with a huge landslide, an enormous landslide. Okay, Trump can't even come close to that. People talk about Trump's victory against Kamala Harris being a landslide. Look at the electoral map in 80 and 84. It was something like 90% to 10. So Reagan really was a hugely popular president who crossed the aisle and who kind of fostered bipartisan politics Trump, unfortunately for him, and I give him credit for a number of things. I also criticize him for a bunch of other things. But Trump is a polarizing figure, and that's where they very much differ.
But
Trump has an opportunity now, and I think I would spend this second term, now that he's kind of like, he's untouchable now, right? It's just this one term, and, you know, he can define his legacy any way he wants to. I think what he should do is try and do a kind of what Reagan did, which is end the wars. Okay, and by the way, I know to the winner go the spoils. Somebody's going to be, of course, left shortchanged. Okay, we know that. Okay, and however the wars ended, I think it's important that they end somehow. Okay,
right.
And we hope there's justice for certainly for the Palestinians. No question about that. And I think in so doing and thereafter, I really think him and his cabinet should start trying to foster and kind of like make this bridge with the Democratic Party. Yeah. And I really do think so. I think that would be a wonderful
that's
legacy.
Great, but that's not what's going to happen.
Well, I think
we have to focus on what might happen. And that's very unlikely.
Why can't he do that?
Because I told you, he serves himself. It's not in his own interest. What does he gain out of that? Nothing. But
I'll tell you what he gained out of that. Okay? I'll tell you exactly what he gained out of that. He is now grooming, his family to become the second and then even the third. Because Barron, Barron's
great height,
6'9",
and good pomade.
I mean, Jesus Christ,
he's like an amalgamation of Reagan and Trump.
He's exactly an amalgamation. Okay, so never mind. What's her name? Ivanka.
No, she's out.
But no. I mean, she can be the second generation. Okay, but look, Bush Senior. Bush Senior and Bush Junior were separated by 8 years.
Trump is going to serve 3 terms.
Oh yeah, he's going to serve 3 terms. He's going to live forever. He's going to live forever.
Exactly.
But at the time that he wants to kind of like bequeath the presidency to someone, right?
Yes.
Like he's going to bequeast it to one of his children, okay?
Yeah.
And I would think, I really believe it, okay?
Yeah.
Like with all these political dynasties, the Bushes being the most relevant ones, okay? And where Clinton failed, Clinton doesn't have as extensive a family, right? But Trump does, okay? Is that if you can become that kind of bipartisan president, okay? First of all, you'll have lots of good libraries. The Trump library will be forever enriched. But also, they will remember you. And by the way, his children's ability in down the road to basically be able to, I'm going to make this point, okay? To be able to harness their father's name when they're running and say, my father was the guy that brought the two parties back together, that ended wars, that galvanized, that incentivized, that enriched the economy. Tick, 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 tick.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom.
No. You're right. They will say those things. Yes. None of those things will be true, but they'll say them anyway. And that's a big difference between the Republican Party and the Democrats. The Democrats don't really back each other up. Republicans always have each other's back. Okay. And I think regardless of what he does, he'll always be looked at as a great president unless he really messes up, which, by the way, is highly likely.
It's possible. It's
very likely.
It's possible, but you know what? I'm hoping that some common sense will prevail, okay? And that the people around him will talk common sense. By the way, I do think to some extent, you might disagree with me.
Yeah.
Okay? I think the rhetoric is strong. I think he's mellowed slightly.
Listen, the good thing about him so far, I mean, there's many good things about him.
The hair,
but
the Brioni suits, oversized, 58 long.
In this current term that he's taken on, he's got rid of all these old, like, cronyistic, like, part of the establishment people like Pompeo and Bolton, who was like, they've been spinning the same line for 40 years. We get it.
Yeah.
At least he's brought in some fresh blood.
Okay, but it's still early days. Yes, I agree. But
I give you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The optics are better.
I'm not saying I'm not saying the optics are better. At least it's fresh. At least it's a different kind of mindset than was before.
Yes.
It was the same old thing with the Republicans before.
No question about it.
And it was the same old people, right?
Yeah.
Now it's new people, which is good. And he's unpredictable, which is always also good. I think it's going to end in tears, but we'll be entertained along the way.
But can I ask you a question?
We'll be entertained along the way because that man is hilarious.
I know. You know what? I mean, listen, and look, you know what? Do you want to read? Last time I read a passage.
Guys, I don't know what you thought of this episode, but please subscribe. Tell us if you liked it. Tell us if you want us to go back to the movies. Tell us whatever you want.
Last time I read a passage from Trump. Why don't you read it?
No.
You don't want to read it?
No, you do. But do the impersonation.
I can't do a good Trump impersonation.
Just do your best.
The BBC is in total disarray. The failing New York Times gets worse and worse by the day.
The leaks are absolutely real. The news is fake. I'm turning to Fox News where we get a fair shake. Watch Saturday Night Live hit job on me. I don't call it thin-skinned. I'm angry.